YouTube feed and our Facebook feed. And see how we do here. Okay, share news feed, timeline. Oh no, actually I don't want to do that. Yep, I want to do that. And I want to do, all right. So as this is populating in YouTube and Facebook world, um, we are super excited to have the president of our local FRIA organization with us. And let me just put a title on this and hit go live. Go add a title. I thought I added a title. Okay, I'll add two titles. And we are going live in 5 and 4 and 3. We are now live. All right. So, hey, it's Earl, Ambrose. Kivo may call in. So the triad is here. And today we are, blessed and highly favored to have Mr. Leon Griggs with us, who is our chapter president for our local FRIA organization. So, we trust today is we're going to expand a little bit because we're going to talk a lot more than just wholesaling as our traditional custom is, because, Brother Leon is a treasure trove of different knowledge sets as it relates to real estate. So, we're really excited. We're going to go to broad screen so we can just kind of get into it. And we are rolling. All right. So, Brother Leon, if you could, for our YouTube and Facebook of following, just share a little bit about who you are and how you got into this industry of real estate.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on tonight. And I'll do my best to impart upon you as much information as I can. Um, so, no, to your specific question, I mean, basically, I was one of the individuals back in my time, and it does, I have to say it that way because it was quite a while ago. And, so we're talking back in the 70s, okay? So I was basically born and raised in Houston, Texas, and moved up to Rochester to take a job with Eastman Kodak Company. And so I had a friend. We were looking at, well, what is the things that we could actually do so that we could make money and we could be independently wealthy. we could say it that way. And so we went off. We took a class, and I remember back. So we got to think about monies, and the decimal point started shift a bit. So we we came up with something like about approaching $2,000, and we split it. And he went to a class, and I went to a class, and we came back. We pulled all those things together, and we basically bought together. We bought um, 5 or 6 units over over a time period. So that was the beginning of an exposure to things. And I mentioned Kodak because it was in a different time in a different place, and it was I don't want to get into politics and that type of thing, but it was a time period when there was a real middle class and everybody wanted to do things and go further with their aspirations that they had in life. And so that was basically how I got started, and that was the beginning. Of course, there was no Um, Man, I mean, at that time period, I was into computers because I took my job with Kodak because of computers, and most of the computers would take up um, just gigantic amounts of space. You have more power on a cell phone now than you do on a lot of the computers that will cover large corporations. So um, that's basically how I got started. It was through that type of exposure, do through doing those types of things that led me to say, okay, what is it I really want to do?
Come off of mute and let Ambrose take the next question. You're on mute, bro.
I got it. Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about Ambrose?
Good, good. Feeling awesome. I'm very excited to have you on our show today. For my first question, so I know that you have been in this business for quite a while now. You have a lot of experience, but one of the things that most people, especially newbie like myself, don't really understand is that how to count a property, right? So I want to know if you could please tell me and the audience how have you been able to count your properties, and is there any other tricks that you use when you want to get the right number for a
Yeah, you
property?
yeah you broke up there a bit, and I wasn't able to catch the whole question. Could
I'm
you?
sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah.
Oh, I was basically saying, how are you able to count your property, being that you have been in this field for a while? I don't know if you can hear me or not. My thing is giving a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I
Can you hear me?
think you can hear you. It's basically, how do I come by my properties? Is that what you said?
No, let me help. It's comparable values. So you
Oh,
could, being married to
how
a
do I do?
realtor.
Okay. How do I do
Yeah.
comparables for my property?
Oh.
Okay, I'm sorry. Uh, you know, they said hearing is one of those first things to go, but I can tell you there's
Yeah.
other things too. But
It's okay. It's okay.
basically, basically, as uh, we were talking a few minutes ago, earlier myself, and we were basically talking about the fact that my wife also is into real estate, and she happens to be a real estate broker. So, what I do is I say, um, I have this property located. Her name is Mary Jane. I say, Mary Jane, I have this property located at this address and this. So give me some information on it, and give me a CMA, and let me know what you think the value of the property should be. And so CMA, comparative market analysis. And so for me, it's a little bit different than for most people because obviously I'm able to just ask her and get it done. And she can pull out a number of different reports because of the fact that she has access to the MLS, and she can look at properties and what they were listed for and what they sold for. And one of the key things is that she understands the Rochester market. You can say it's on this street, and she would say, "Oh, that price is right on." Or she would say, "Boy, that price is just that doesn't make any sense whatsoever." So that's the way I do it. Now, I think to get at the substance of what your question was, for someone who's just starting out, how do they do that? How are they able to get a comparative market analysis and do things in a way that allows them to say, okay, yeah, this is really what this property is worth. So what has to happen is you need to set up a relationship with someone who's a real estate agent or broker. And once you set up that relationship, now you don't have to go as far as I did and marry them, okay? But you still have to do, to some extent, be have an agreement amongst the two of you that what you're going to do is you are going to ask them to do things for you to help you. And as a result, when you get ready to buy, that's the person you're going to buy from. So it's basically almost like a marriage. It's a commitment to
Right.
each other. Okay, and so what happens is they do the same thing. If they know that you're going to buy properties from them, and you say, well, I need a comparative market analysis associated with this property, then they're going to do it. The thing that you have to be careful of, you can't be asking them to be doing 10 of these things every day, But by the same token, after a while, you'll even get an understanding of, if I'm located on certain streets in certain places, then the property is not worth $200,000.
Mhm.
And so you begin to build that knowledge yourself. But that's the easiest way that I know to start off and have reliable comparative market analysis and be able to do comparables and see what properties are should actually be selling for. Long way of answering your question, but hopefully.
Nah, it's good. It's good. I like the answers. And speaking of relationship, I was wondering, how do you find contractors? And have you worked with a contractor for a while? Have you built that trust relationship with a contractor where you both understand that, hey, listen, we have to work to basically have a project going on. Having a relationship in this field is definitely one of the biggest value that I've taken from listening to a lot of people, including you. So I was wondering if you could tell me more about that.
Sure, sure. Um, I mean, this is somewhat of a touchy subject from the perspective that if you had someone that was your good friend and you were both into real estate and you were doing really, really great, both of you, and you decided that you were going to, in some way, um, take over portions of the time of that person, the opposite side of you, who is your best friend. Let's say it's Earl, and Earl he has Bobby and he's got Joe, and then all of a sudden you say, well, I need to get this done, so let me talk to Joe, and you take up half of Joe's time. You and Earl are probably not going to be friends much longer.
Right.
Okay. And the reason why is because when you can get someone who really knows what they're doing, who does it at a fair price, it is very, very valuable. And so investors, they keep very close to their vest, their contractors. And so one of the things that with me is that uh, I'm lucky because I had a friend and we basically built our own houses when we were young whippersnappers. Okay, so what we did was first we built his house in Arundicourt, and he sold that house, and then we built his second house in Arundicourt. We built my house in Webster that I live in now, and that was almost 30 years ago. So it's a 3,100 square foot contemporary cape. And he was an RG&E gas engineer. And I worked at Kodak as an IT guy. And we built those houses while we were working full time. And then we built a restaurant also from the ground up. So it's one of those things that uh, uh, is on the tangent of the question that you're asking,
Hmm.
from the perspective that over time I've built my own personal level of knowledge. And the one thing that I would say to folks is that's good and that's bad. The good part is I know what it should cost. I know how it should be done. I can do it better than most of them. And if I'm doing it for myself, it's going to always be better than them. I don't care how professional they say they are, because they're not going to take the time and effort that I do. And and the bad part is because of the fact you have that knowledge, you have to be very careful, because what it what it what it does is it pushes you to try to do a lot of things yourself. And what you really want to do is you really want to engage others to do those things so that you can focus on the most important parts. Okay.
Right.
And so we're talking about real estate investing. We're in the real estate investing business. So what's the most important thing? What's the most important thing to do? The most important thing to do. And this is an arguable statement. And I recognize I'm getting a little bit off the facts, off the question,
No,
but still, I think this part
Bring on the knowledge.
keep
We
going.
want knowledge.
yeah.
Help us out, brother.
Yeah, so the thing that happens is the most important thing is the deal, a real deal, not a play deal, a real deal where you, because otherwise, what is it that you're doing? If you don't have any deals, what do you have? It's simple. You have nothing,
Right.
nothing. Okay, so it took me a while, and I think a lot of real estate investors really struggle with that piece, and the fact that you have to find a deal. So, back to the contractors, because I can go off on that subject I was just talking about almost forever. Most of the contractors that you find it's really tough to find one that operates with integrity, that knows what they're doing, that can do the work, and it be something that you say, oh yeah, that looks really, really nice. Okay, so I hopefully that answers your question. I mean, clearly, finding them is tough, and then once you, so my approach is once I start to work with a contractor, or first of all, I do as much homework as I can to find out what their skill level is when you talk to others. Okay,
Mhm.
are they professional in their approach to things? Okay, and if you understand some of the basics around the type of work that they're doing, because you're talking about a large skill set crossing a number of different areas. So if it's an electrician, I mean, it takes me probably 5 minutes to know whether or not they're worth a grain of salt. And it's because that was one of the areas that I used to work as an electronic test technician in my earlier days. So the electrical stuff is good. But if you do the things that we're talking about around houses and that sort of thing, then it allows you to build that base level of knowledge. And so you could sum it up with just what is the level of exposure that you have to different skill sets and trades. So there are just a number of different ways to do a number of different things you can do to build your knowledge, and so that's really the starting point. And 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 the reason why it's a starting point is because you use that to then, for sake of better words, vet someone to see whether or not they're really able to do what they can do. And the other piece of it is you'll be able to be at organization like Freedom First Real Estate Investment Association. You can ask people and they would say, oh yes, that's a great guy. Or most cases they're not going to say, well, I wouldn't have him work for me because I don't really like the type of work they're going to do. They would just say, well, I'm not so sure. And the not so sure are the ones you have to be concerned about.
Good. Thank you very much. Like you said, once you have a contractor that like that understands what you really want to accomplish and are full of integrities, you have to cherish them and keep them because they are very rare to have in this business. So I respect that a lot. And I'm gonna pass the torch to Earl.
So if we could just come on, tie a couple ideas together. So we've been talking about strategic relationships and we've been talking about finding the deal. And so this is a program for newbies. So for most newbies, man, it's all about that first deal. So with that being said, talk to us a little bit about your first deal and how, as your knowledge has evolved, how you find your deals now.
Good question. Let me have to go way back because the first deal that I did was I did a deal and I didn't realize I was doing a deal. Okay, because uh, um, my wife, she's also from Houston, so we actually took a job up here to work for Kodak. And but when we did that, we had just bought a house. And we actually bought the house. This shows you how smart my wife is. We actually bought a house because she said, I don't want to go on a honeymoon, I want a house. And so we actually, instead of going on a honeymoon, we actually took the money and we actually bought a house. And so right now that house is still in my family. And what happened was we actually rented it out for maybe like 5 years while we were up here. And then my mom actually moved into the house. Okay, and so that's the reason why it's still in our family, still a part of our family. And so, but the key piece to this, back to your question, is the house was a VA foreclosure, and someone had taken it over, and we bought it as a VA foreclosure. The thing is, we didn't realize we were doing it. Okay, and when I could go back and look at what really transpired after I got much more involved in real estate, it was obvious to me, boy, I was doing real estate and we didn't even realize we were doing it. We just had a person who had a corner real estate company, and that's what they sold us. And so that was the initial. That's the first part of your question. Okay, so now the to the what is it that I do today to find deals? What I
Well,
do is,
tell me about the evolution, because remember, we're dealing with newbies. So I don't
yeah,
want to take huge steps and lose half my audience.
okay,
All
okay,
right.
okay. So but I was going to still be on the same path,
Okay.
it, but good job of correcting me and bringing me back to the right focus. But basically, what happens is, um, when you really look at what it is you do, as we talked about earlier, you really need to be able to find deals, because it says whether you're going to have, you know, a complete pie, or whether you're just going to have a crumb. Okay, it really is that simple, because if you don't have a deal, you don't, you're really doing nothing. So what is done fundamentally, and I'll put it in a way so that for newbies it's pretty straightforward, but newbies probably haven't thought about it this way. You typically take a number of different ways of finding deals, and you bring it all into a funnel. Think about it that way. Everything gets funneled in, and what happens is you are then able to be looking at a number of different ways of going at things. So the VA foreclosures, or foreclosures in general. Okay, if you're doing tax sales and tax sales in general, so you, or whether you're just doing the one that I consider to be the most, well, the one that you normally get one of the highest numbers of return on your request for, I buy houses, or I want to buy your house, those sorts of things. It's very simple, and it's very obvious. For a newbie, it doesn't hop right out at them, and that is vacant houses. Vacant houses is number one, because it has everything that you is looking for. It's screaming at you. Somebody don't want me. Please call me. I got a vacant house, So I mean, so that's one of the, if I had to pick the thing that I have used and been probably most successful at, is vacant houses. And I do it a little bit different than a lot of people, because when you really break it down, to be just an average real estate investor, you don't need a lot of deals. Okay. Now, if you're going to be doing it full time, then the curve ramps up, because now, if for example, if I'm back and I'm working at Kodak, then how many deals do I need? I have my job going on, but when I leave my job, now I have to ramp up to cover that salary and all those other expenses and things that I don't have. And so you don't really need a lot of deals, but you need a lot of good deals. And to me, vacant houses is one of the key things. And the list goes on and on and on. I mean, there's a list that we used to send around, and it had like 100 different ways to find deals, and it just lists them out, one liners all the way down. And so, if someone was really trying to do something along those lines, and let me be precise, because along those lines is not probably a good way of saying it. But if you're really trying to get a deal, then you want to be having that funnel have all those things coming into it. And so, for example, something like your social media and Facebook. That's one feed, okay? And so you're getting all those things together, trying to come up with this one thing that is truly a deal. So, and the thing is, and because we have newbies here on your call, let's break it down to brass tacks. So, what is a deal? A deal is very simple. It's all in the numbers. Do the numbers work? You can't make something be a deal if it's not a deal. And so don't even spend your time doing it. Now, if you have someone, and that's my last comment is a little bit different than if my approach to things are different and I have a different strategy, and part of my strategy is to put a whole bunch of money into it because I know what I'm going to get out. That might work for me, but that might not work for you because you don't have a whole bunch of money. And so another person can take a different strategy, and that different strategy they're putting in place allows them to be successful. I know one guy. He basically, I'm sort of dating myself, but he basically uh, buy and sell 100 to 120 properties a year. So he rehabs those properties, and what he does is he then sells them, and the average amount of money that he makes is $5,000 when he does a complete rehab. He makes $5,000. That's not a lot of money, right? Okay, now take that not a lot of money and take that 5,000 and you multiply it, and that's how much he's clearing. With all his contractors, everything else, that's how much he's clearing. Now you multiply that time 100.
Mhm.
That's how much he be bringing in every year.
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, he has not chump change, right? but I'm not gonna call people's names and that type of stuff, but he's a real person. He's in the Rochester area. Okay, so yeah, I mean it's
I'm
a number of different ways of finding deals, and hopefully I address a large portion of your question.
No, I appreciate that. Again, because you're sharing it from a newbie perspective. Now, for deal two and three, was it similar to deal one? How did those three deals differ?
So I'm trying to think because I have to go back a ways to get to deal two and
You
three.
you always remember your first deal.
Yeah, you remember the
The
first
third
one.
and fourth one, they get
Yeah,
lost.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, certainly if you're down in that time frame, what we would do is we would take and we would I would work with my uh, business partner that I would have just mentioned that we took the class together, and what we would do is we would sort of pool our money together, and then we would buy a property.
Mhm.
Okay. And so certainly the first 4, 5, 6 properties, that's what we did. And then we turned around and we sold them.
Mhm.
Okay. After we held them for a while.
Mhm.
So, and that was just our strategy. The key thing about it was for us, it was really good because it was a learning process and it allowed us to very quickly learn things at the same time we were working our regular jobs full time.
Got it. Got it. I'm gonna kick it back over to Ambrose, but when I get an opportunity, I definitely want to pivot back to your involvement with FreeUp and how that is a benefit for a newbie, trying to understand this whole process of wholesaling.
Yeah.
Ambrose, you got it. Take it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit different. So now I just want to know more about you. Is there any book that you are currently reading? Are there any podcasts are you're currently listening to that you could recommend to any newbie out there?
Well, I'm sort of thinking now, probably looking podcasts. Um, I've listened to podcasts from a person by the name of Scott Carson. You guys know Scott Carson, so he does notes. Yes, yeah. So uh, that's I would not necessarily suggest that for a newbie, and the reason why is because it takes a basic fundamental level of knowledge that crosses a broad number of different topics and subjects that you need to be able to not necessarily master, but at least understand to be effective. Because when you're doing things like notes, you need to understand in the particular state that you're in, is it a judicial state, is it a non-judicial state, what are the foreclosure laws, a whole bunch of things of that sort. You need to feel very, very comfortable with that. Even though you haven't went and looked at the house, you still can go through all the steps and be able to say, that's a great buy. I'm going to buy it. Okay. It is a deal. And so it takes a different level of knowledge, anything superior about it. The only thing that is really uh, delineating about it is the fact that now you have built the level of knowledge to allow you to look at things and look at it in a from a different perspective. I'll give you one example along the line we're talking about in the note space. So in the note space, a lot of people say, well, I can't see that property. I don't know what's going on with that property. Why would I can't buy that property in Tupelo, Mississippi, because I don't even know what Tupelo looks like. How am I going to be able to figure it out? What am I going to be able to do? Okay, so what happens is there are a number of different steps that you can take. And so one example is, and it costs you very little to no money. You call a real estate agent that's located in Tupelo, and you say, I'm interested in this house at 123 Main Street, and you know, it's been sitting there vacant for a while, or you give them some general information associated with it, and then what he or she will do is they would say, okay, well, I'll go over and look at it for you. And the reason why they would do that is you say, if I buy this house, I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to list it with you. So you begin to build a relationship with someone, because of a number of the things that we do in life is all about relationships. Okay. So you build a relationship with that person, and then the person will go over and they will do that. Now, the worst case scenario, it'll cost you, it used to be $50, probably more like $125 now. But what you would do is you would say, go over and give me a BPO, okay, broker's price opinion of what this property is, where it's located at, all those sorts of things. And when I say where it's located at, is it a good area, is it a bad area, is it the A area, B area, C area? Okay, uh, what do you know about it? Because you got a little town like Tupelo, Mississippi, almost everybody know everything about what everybody else is doing. So, so I mean, let me go back. I got down a little bit in the weeds maybe on that one, but did I get to the crux of what your question was?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with the podcast and everything like that, like you say, it's more of a advanced podcast. So for a newbie, you might want to start off with the littlest,
Yeah,
little step right now.
yeah. I'm so with the podcast, um, the, clearly, there are people. I think Carson probably up to a couple of thousand podcasts now.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that. But I don't do a lot of them, okay, because uh, Freedom First is one of those things that I spend a lot of time doing. My wife used to ask me if I was crazy or just completely dumb. Okay, and she really didn't put it that way, but the thing that happens is it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of effort, because every and I'm not the only person that does this. People give in a different way because it's a not-for-profit organization. But in the past, what I've done is I've taken people who are newbies, and what I've said is what I'm going to do, and I'm actually doing this right now. Okay. What I'm going to do is, you haven't never done a property. You haven't never flipped a property. So you want to flip a property. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you use my resources. Okay. I'm going to let you use my contractors. I'm going to show you how to get the private funds. I'm going to work with you so you can get the private fund from the person who loaned monies to me. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through that house with you and tell you all the stuff that you need to do. Okay. And on the front side of it, is it a deal? Is it not a deal? And should you be buying it or not? And so my wife also helps me do that. Okay. So because from the real estate standpoint, she would give the person coaching, and it's one of those things that um, sort of goes back to my first comment, and that is my only requirement is the person is a Freedom First member. They don't, they don't, there's no uptick from the standpoint of I got the contractor doing the work and he's going to give me money. No, it's all, it's all right there for what it is that person charges them. I don't charge them one red copper penny.
Thank you. And also, speaking of time and energy, what are your daily routine? So, what are you doing in the morning when you first get up to when you go to bed?
Well, this time of year, seeing I'm from Houston, I know a lot of Yankees fans are not great fans of the Astros. So, you know, I, last night I was watching them till about 1 o'clock when the best player made a whole bunch of errors, and they lost the game. But typically I'm one of those people I like to stay up late, and then sort of sleep in a little bit. But on most days I'm out doing rehabs to houses where I try to have a property where I'm, and this may sound like a shift, if you would, to what I was talking about in the very beginning, but having built houses myself, it's one of those things that I found out a long time ago. I really, really, really like doing it. Okay, I don't know how many rehabs I've done where I get a property and then I got to go in there and everything is a shambles. I don't even I don't even try to count those. I think I did like 4 or 5 last year. Okay, and so I'm doing that at the same time that I'm trying to do all other things that people have going on in their life. So I mean, a given day is um, a day where I'm working, and my wife is a lot more tolerant now because I don't separate Saturdays and Sundays from Mondays and Tuesdays.
Okay.
We have Ambrose, if you don't mind, we have a saying about that. We say that Saturdays, Sundays is when the W-2, that's when they take off. That's when self-employed people, that's
Yeah,
when we get started.
yeah,
Yeah, so appreciate that. Well, normally at about the 20-minute mark, 30-minute mark, we actually shift gears and ask you to kind of, speak to your passion, speak to what gets you up in the morning. And we've kind of teased around it, for the whole episode about freedom first and, your involvement. So, I mean, if you could just talk to, how, you shifted into that role and, why you're so passionate about it.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that I basically got into um, when Freedom First was first started. I became a member. I was like at the first meetings and stuff, um, and because we would have several events, but we were called the full timers, which means we sort of full time did real estate. You spent significant amount of time doing it, and so we're back in the 2002 time frame. Are we still there?
No, yep, I'm just putting up the Freedom First banner.
Oh, okay, because I lost the screen and stuff. But basically, from that group that met, the organization was actually created. It wasn't created by me. I basically took over in the 2009, 2010 timeframe, and Susan and Joe and myself, we became a team within a year or so after that. Susan was there before I was. Susan Holman and Joe McGuire are the people that I'm talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, when we started it off, it was much more of a club. We were not a member of the National Real Estate Investment Association. We were a group of just club people who just went to a club, and we met once a week
Mm-hmm.
um, on a Friday morning. So that was sort of the beginning of it. And when I started off doing it, it was not as much a passion. It's like the difference is like night and day almost, because when I first started, it was just, another place where I went to get information about real estate investing. And then over time, I got more involved and more involved, and now it's it consumes probably more of my time than any one item that I actually do. And it's really from the perspective that's really quite simple, and that is trying to do things so that I can help others be successful. That is that is the main approach and the main thing that that at this point I'm I'm trying to do. And so uh, over time, we got to that particular place, and before then it was just a regular old thing. So, but it is a way of giving. I mean, I took an early retirement after working from Kodak, and I could have just went off to a beach someplace down Galveston. That would have been a nice beach down in near Houston, But that's not what I opted to do. So the thing about Freedom First and the way it's structured is that we have six or eight, 6 to 8 subgroup leaders, we call them. And the subgroup leaders actually run sessions where individuals who want to know about uh, landlording or being a housing provider is probably the right terminology to use instead of landlording, who wants to do that portion of it. We have 2 meetings a month. And those individuals spend their time talking about here's what you need to do to be successful as a real estate investor. Then we have another uh, subgroup that's called the alternative group. And what the alternative group is, it's really aimed at people who want to be successful at real estate, but they want to do it that in a way that does not include having to deal with tenants. So all the things that we talked about earlier, like notes or flipping houses or all those things that are outside the realm of tenants and owning houses is a part of it. So it could be things like you do rent to own, and we have people who are subgroup leaders who are very successful at that. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to get that information over to someone, and the main objective is to do it and do it in a way where that person can get knowledge that'll be very hard for them to get in another type of setting. Clearly there are things like fortune builders, and we have a number of members who are who started off as uh, having paid for fortune builders and bought that program. And what works great for one person may not work great for another. And so I certainly know folks who've done it and been very successful. I know some who have done it and they've been very non-successful, to put it that way. And it's one of those things where each person has to feel with themselves that it's the right thing for them to do. Our objective as an organization is to give people opportunities to learn new and different ways of doing real estate investing and to support them. So I mean, if you look at what it is that the organization does. And I was interested, I was listening to a person who went through the steps, and I said, gee, that's really nice the way that it's broken down, because if you become a member of Freedom First, then what is the value that you get out of it? Why am I doing it? I'm doing it because I want to feel a level of fulfillment because of the fact that I help somebody be successful. I don't really look beyond that. Okay, so and so you do that by, as an organization, we do that by having the people uh, be able to find deals, share deals, find deals. I mentioned earlier, provide, tell me where you can go and you can get funding for a deal, regardless of your credit score. But you can do that by talking to members at Freedom First. Okay, and then a part of that I just said was networking. I mean, so uh, in the meetings that we have, that now most of them are, we only have one that is not Zoom. We had one meeting and went back in person. We still have to work our way through that, but to the point, networking is where people really gain knowledge. That's where the knowledge transfer takes place, because we're basically networking right now. Okay, because we're talking about the way we do things, how we see things, and you're getting input from someone who's been around, done it a little bit longer than you have. Don't mean that that person is smarter. I don't ever think I'm any smarter than anybody else. I just think that I might have had a little bit of more exposure, and on you know item A, I might be smarter. On item C, I might be a little bit behind. On item D, I might be dumber than dumb. And so it's one of those things of sharing information so that as a group and as a team, we are able to be successful and be better at what it is that we're trying to accomplish. That's the main objective that we have. And the piece around networking, that's the piece that separates us from most other real estate investment associations across these here United States. So, so that's one piece. And then the other item is that if you become a member, you are able to get national RIA. So the National Real Estate Investment Association provides benefits to people who are members of Freedom First, because we're a chapter um, member, and as a chapter member, people people can actually get benefits from places like Home Depot, from a number of different organizations, Rent Perfect, so just a number of benefits that you would not have. There are probably 12, 15 of them. Now, don't want to rattle them all off here. The other thing is, and we talked about this one a little bit already, and that is we're talking now, and one of the main reasons why I think that you guys wanted to talk to me was get my view and idea on things, but also to hear what I have to say, because one of the big advantages that you have when you talk to someone who's been around a while, uh, that person has probably been successful, one, and two, when you start to talk to them, they aren't going to say, "Oh, you're crazy. You can't do that." It's like, you can't make no money at real estate investing. What are you doing? And so you get this level of emotional support that you can't find someplace else. Okay, you have to go a long ways to find someone who would say to you, "Yep, you know, I'm this guy, and typically I wholesale between 80 and 120 properties a year." You know, and but the person is standing right there in the flesh. It's not no question about them and whether they did it. Okay, so I mean, all those things are the key pieces that make Freedom First a valuable place for anyone that's doing real estate investing, and whether that person is new or whether that person has been doing it for 30 years. I would submit to you that there's value to be had, because there's some pieces is not knowledge oriented. it's, like if I have a deal, like go back to one of your first questions. One of the last properties that I flipped, I got it from a wholesaler that is one of the people who wholesales properties in this area. Okay, so it's one of those things of that's part of the funnel, and I didn't care that the person made $20,000 wholesaling it to me, and the reason why is because I made a lot more than that.
Amen. Amen.
But that's a part of being a member of the organization,
Right.
because that's an example of sharing, really sharing deals and sharing thoughts and ideas. And because when I say, well, how did you find this property? Gee, this is really, really great. They're not gonna say, well, I ain't gonna tell you. That's the way it would happen in some other places. They would say, well, I called this number right here. I did this. I talked to this person 3 or 4 times, and so they're gonna break it down to them. Earl, you're fairly new to to the organization. Is that the way you found it to be?
Well, the organization is really giving me, uh, it put my team together. It is really through the organization of Freedom First that I was able to reach out to Kivo, or I'm not sure if he reached out to me, and it was through Freedom First that I met Ambrose at I think we were playing Cash Flow, and just kindred spirits going down the same path, and we decided that what, we could see a future together, and it is an amazing opportunity. And I shared with you earlier on. You remind me. Your spirit reminds me of an uncle of mine that worked at Eastman Kodak, and it just, Rochester's a small world. Your wife and my uncle worked in the same lab,
Hmm.
so it's really been a blessing, and I'm not sure if you mind me plugging this, but we actually do have a Freedom First event online tomorrow at 7 o'clock,
Oh
and,
yeah,
and I would like to actually put the details in the chat box at the end of the segment.
yeah, yeah.
So
That'll be great. Yeah, I mean, because we do a lot of things off of the sweat, for sake of better words, of people who run the organization, like the subgroup leaders. Uh, but we still have to have monies, and so it comes primarily through uh, the the dues that we get, and also from as a member. We are a chapter member of National RIA, which means that when our members buy a certain amount of monies from a certain amount of materials and other things from places like Home Depot, then we get some of the monies back as a thank you for having our members actually utilize Home Depot, and that's national across the whole U.S. So yeah, really, really good to plug it from the standpoint of having people know. And I mean, with the way we operate, the first 2 meetings are free. You don't have to become a member. I mean, right now we're in the mode of primarily just having people. You just get on to the Zoom meeting and you can participate and get information, and no one says anything about are you a member or not. At some point down the road, that'll probably change, but that's the way it is right now. The other thing I want to make sure that people are aware of is that we do things like workshops. Uh, so if you take November coming up as a whole month in front of us, we'll have at least 6 meetings. Okay, so we'll have the 2 meetings for each one of the subgroups because they meet in the morning, they meet in the evening, and we do that so that people who work during the daytime they can still participate. And so that's the folks who are interested in being housing providers or landlords. And then the other one is the people who want to do all those things outside of that arena. And that group is called alternative groups. It's all up on our website. And then we have our general meeting. And the general meeting this November is going to be a person that's going to come in and they're going to take the general meeting and they're going to do like a short presentation, and then they're going to follow that up with a workshop on Saturday. So that's the 14th of November and the 21st, if I remember correctly. Can't be the 21st, 14th, but
It looks good. I'm on our website right now. I think that's correct.
yeah. And so here's what happens. Um, when someone comes, and this is not unique to us, all the national real uh, organizations do it. When the speaker comes, the speaker actually gives part of their proceeds that they charge for a class. It goes back to that RIA, and then they use that to help fund their events and do the things along the lines we're talking about. And so what do you think this particular one in November is going to be about? What does it say there?
I'm actually going to share the screen with,
Okay.
with our audience right now so they can see it. And so the screen says Summit Series, November 12th, rapid cash generated with motivated sellers from Tom Zeb.
Yep.
On Saturday, full day of content and help.
Yep. And so there'll be content there, but he has a fair number of different courses and packages that he'll be selling. This guy, if you took let me just back up for a second, make sure you get the right context. What we do is we have a meeting every year where all of the presidents, vice presidents, they have to be at a mid-year event that National RIA puts on. At that mid-year event, we go through and we evaluate speakers. This guy here was the number one speaker for the last 5 years.
Wow.
Okay. So he knows his stuff and he's really good at delivering it. For anyone who has any kinds of thoughts around how you find motivated sellers, the piece around the wholesaling piece, typically you find motivated sellers, it's up to you how you're going to then handle it. Are you going to try to do something along the lines of wholesaling, or are you going to keep it and do your own thing and flip it, So, but he's going to go through all those things, and he's really good, really good.
Super excited. We're super excited to be there. So, I typically we leave the last question for Ambrose. So I'm gonna kick it over to you. But Brother Leon, let me just say, it has been a pleasure just having you on the podcast. You dropped a lot of knowledge. I'm looking at the chat box. The chat box has been blowing up, and we do really appreciate your presence. So Ambrose,
Okay.
you have the last question, brother.
Thank you, Mr. Leon, for joining us again, like Earl said. So how can people reach out to you? Are you on social media, Facebook, Instagram?
Basically, I have an account, a Facebook account. I typically don't do a lot with Facebook.
Right.
I don't do a lot with. I do probably more things with LinkedIn than Facebook, and because I don't want people to get the wrong idea. If I'm either one of you two guys, my approaches would be completely different. Okay, different from the perspective that I'm at a different point in where I want to be in life. Okay, I worked for 37 years at Kodak, and so it helped me build a base that a lot of people wouldn't have. Would you do better as a real estate investor? In a lot of cases, absolutely. Okay, in a lot of cases, no. So it's not sort of like one is better than the other. I don't want to get that kind of view of it. So what I would do is just suggest to people that that you always keep in mind that you're able to do things and you can be successful at doing it. You just have to have the willpower. And I keep getting a little confused because my screen keeps disappearing on me here.
That's me. I'm just giving the backdrop. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So um, so Ambrose,
Yes.
just give me your question a little bit again so I can make sure I covered it all. I got it.
I mean, I was just asking, how can people get in touch with you? To
Yeah. I don't have an account on Facebook, or I mean, you can put your things out there on Facebook, and I'll probably go there probably once every 3 months. And so if you want to get in contact with me, you can go to leongriggs@yahoo.com and send me an email.
Perfect.
That's the easy way of getting in contact with me.
Yep.
And I prioritize things for people who are Freedom First members. I typically talk to them once, and then in my phone, indicate they're a Freedom First member. When they call me, I answer the phone almost immediately. Because if I don't know who it is, then I figure it's just a robocall.
So, Leon, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Now, in the future, when I see your text message, I'm
Yeah,
gonna make it a point to throw Freedom First in there.
yeah, yeah. Well, what I do is in my caller ID, I put Freedom First as part of the name title of it, so it pops right up to me. So that way I know who it is, and one of the things that we're doing to address Ambrose's question is we are looking at doing a lot more things in the social media space. Clearly we have a Facebook account and all those things associated with Freedom First, and certainly you could go to that and have a mechanism for getting in contact with me, and you could also send things to the website. But I was answering the question more from the perspective of what is it that you would be doing if you were trying to find motivated sellers or things along that line. And I think that's where Ambrose's question was really coming from. And I'm one of those people that right now, I still believe in being very targeted. So an example, and I know I'm running a little bit over here, but an example would be I had this house that was right near one of the houses that I had recently bought. So I called a person because the house was what? It was a vacant house. So I said, gee, let me call this person. So I called the person and I talked to the lady and she said, no, I don't want to sell. So I can make this story really, really long, but let's go to the short version. 2 years later, she called me and say, I want to sell my house and I want to sell it to you. I don't want to sell it to nobody else.
2 years later.
2 years later.
Wow.
Okay. And so, because the key piece of it is you need to talk to the person, okay, and how you interact with that person and how that person perceives you and how you connect with that person. That's the key piece. That is the key piece. I mean, because that person is getting calls, they're getting letters, they're getting all kinds of things from everybody else. But how does that person really view you? And how do you connect together so that person feels that you are the person, you are the one, okay? That's the secret. I can't tell you all the pieces to it. I know there's a lot of things that you can do to influence the person. I mean, clearly some of the fundamental things is I always treat that person with the same level of respect that you want to be treated. When they hang up, my objective is when that person hangs up, I want them to feel better than they did when they called me. Okay, and then that gets you in the front of the line amongst all these other real estate investors that's call and say, I want to buy your house. Don't you want to sell your house to me? That won't work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Most of the Freedom First successful members will run rings around you if you did that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it.
So a long way of answering your question.
No,
Sorry.
listen, I am always available and ready to get information, especially from someone like you who's been in the business for so long. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, guys, as we've said many times, man, our platform is really to help newbies that want to see this dream that they hear about and read about. You know, wealth starts or ends with real estate, guys, as Oprah. And so it's big enough for everybody to get a piece. So, you know, real housing relief, you know, our focus is revitalizing the community one
Mhm.
property at a time. All right. Thanks again, Brother Leon. We appreciate your time in this day.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure to talk to you. Maybe I'll come on again sometime.
Yes,
Yes, absolutely.
yes.
And you got to bring your wife.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Got to do it. Got to do it. All right.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Talk to you guys later.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
You
Have a
too,
great evening.
Facebook family.